Starting video. Welcome and good morning to this video interview brought to you by Säkerhetspodcasten and SecT. We're interviewing speakers at the SecT conference, and now this morning we have Kyle Wilhoit with us, who just delivered an interesting talk on cyber terrorism.
Yeah, thank you.
Welcome.
It's good to be here. Yeah, thank you.
Great. Anyway, before we get started with discussing your talk, we have a few questions that we usually ask our interview victims. So, first of all, how did you get started in security?
Yeah, that's a good question, actually. So I actually started when I was 13. Had started programming. I actually purchased a book in C++. And from there, I kind of taught myself from, in a bad way, I guess, by going after systems, U.S. government systems that I shouldn't have been. I mean, that's what it is. Yeah. And ultimately, I have a master's and bachelor's in computer science that I ultimately pursued because of that interest. So yeah, I kind of went that route, and I've only ever done security work. I've never done anything else in information technology. So I've been very fortunate in that regard.
So going after those U.S. government systems, was that what ended you up in the intelligence community?
That's kind of part of it. That is part of what kind of happened. I was presented two different opportunities, and I chose the opportunity that would benefit me in a long term. Yeah, which I think was a wise decision ultimately.
You got a great offer.
An offer you couldn't refuse.
An offer I couldn't refuse, literally.
So, do you like orange or?
You can have orange or black suit. You decide. Orange suit or black suit. You can decide.
Exactly.
That happens.
Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of how how it started.
Cool. So, in your opinion, what's the coolest hack in history?
Oh, that's Stuxnet still.
Stuxnet, yeah.
And I still say that because
I would agree. Yeah.
From my perspective, I have a SCADA operational technology background. So anything related to SCADA is automatically going to pique my interest because it's the only thing in technology that has that, well, not the only, but it's one of the few things in technology that can bridge from truly hands-on keyboard to explosions, right? And it's the only kinetic effect, right? Yeah. And I mean, let's look at the Ukrainian incident from December of 2015, right? 230,000 people had lost power due to an incident, a malware incident, So I think Stuxnet or any related black energy, that kind of thing, directly is of the most interest to me, and I think the best.
But as you say, Stuxnet had the cyber physical stuff, but it also had the air gap bridging.
Yeah, right.
And also being undetected for so far,
right?
And the triggering mechanism.
The triggering mechanisms
and the surgical precision.
Right. Yeah. And the leverage of O-days was heavy. Yeah. And it was. There was attention being paid to operational technology systems and networks for a long period of time, but this was the first real true incident that's been published. And it was really interesting, and the story behind that is really a very much James Bondish kind of spy novelish kind of thing. It's interesting. Yeah.
So back to the talk. Cyber terrorism. I was actually really afraid when I saw that title.
Me too. Cyber and terrorism in the
title. Right.
This can't go down wrong.
This will not be a good talk. But then when I read the description, I thought, this could be good. Sort of walking through what do the cyber terrorism organization actually do? And what are the capabilities? I think it was pretty interesting. But
I appreciate that.
What I got from this talk was that I think what you're saying is that it's mostly marketing and recruiting.
Yeah, I completely agree with that.
It's like the PR, and it's sort of semi-organized PR.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's anarchistic sort of way.
Yeah, that's a really good way of looking at it. And realistically, what my objective was with this research was to say, is this truly an issue, right? Meaning, is this truly a risk? Are quote-unquote, cyber terrorists, is this truly an issue that is going to impact us? And as I see it now, as you said, it's kind of marketing PR. There's not much capability from a true malware perspective or from a true information security perspective. It's just not there yet. They're not mature enough for that yet. That's not to say they're not attempting to attract more talent, but I think that they're having our industry is tough to hire for anyway.
Yeah.
And I think getting the expertise in a field like that is even far more difficult. So, but I think you've hit the nail on the head, that ultimately it comes down to that there is a risk, but the risk, in my opinion, is more in the future. Are they going to adapt? Are they going to change their mechanisms? Because as it is now, I don't see it.
No, currently it's like FUD from ISIS.
That's exactly what it is.
Well, also FUD from the media.
Yeah, the media being...
But they are in the FUD business.
Right, that's their core business.
And that's why ultimately during the beginning of the video I showed that CNN article, because I wanted to set the tone and say, the media says this, but realistically, is this the case? Is this what we're seeing on a day-to-day basis? And ultimately, it's not. The media does really good at FUD.
Yeah,
really good.
But if we try to find the bits and pieces that they actually are doing, so fundraising and recruitment. Recruitment, I guess that's definitely a thing.
Yeah.
And fundraising, do they actually channel money through their organizations?
Absolutely. Yeah, they do. They take donations. Now, being said, they'll typically do it via MoneyGram, Bitcoin, Ethereum, alternative currencies.
And that money makes it to the the front line.
From what I've seen, yes. And about 50% of the time. The other 50% of the time, they'll take it and pocket it and run. But I also have to mention that while that is happening, it's not nearly as successful as what you may think either. No. Most of the fundraising is happening from a true business perspective in countries within that region. Yeah. And not necessarily just from fundraising blindly on the internet on just pasted, those kinds of things. Because most people don't trust that.
Yeah. Typically a smaller amount of money.
Precisely, than thousands and thousands of dollars.
Like remote fanboys or something.
Yeah, actually, that's a great way of looking at it. Yeah. It's kind of saying, we support them and here's $20.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned arms deals as well.
Yeah.
Is that really part of this type of organization?
So I view that, yes. And I view that way because I view that as part of the United Cyber Caliphate's recruitment and media arm. And they do that, and I've noticed that some of the same individuals that are publishing those media articles, those magazines, etc., are also going out and doing the same kinds of arm deals. And they're doing also the setup of the pages that are trying to sell those particular arms. And I've witnessed and watched the actual purchase go from that same individual to the actual distribution and sale of firearms, etc. So,
but are they buying or selling?
Both. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, both.
I'm confused.
So they're doing both on both sides, meaning that if they have things or have items that they don't necessarily need to leverage, then they will sell that. Body armor being one case, for instance, that I've witnessed. And specific in body armor were chest plates they were selling and distributing for whatever reason. I don't know the specific reason as to why they were selling the chest plates, but they were. In other cases, they were heavily involved in the actual purchase of firearms, and in one case it was mostly mortars, so 88 mortar rounds. And they were actually purchasing those particular rounds as well. And it was all done on underground forums as well as on Onion sites, etc. But again, many of those particular sites have vulnerabilities, etc., that then you can leverage if needed.
I was thinking about you work for Domain Tools.
Yeah.
Do you share when you do your research? Do you share this with like official intelligence?
Oh, absolutely.
Agencies?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So
because I think you were making a point of their OPSEC being crappy, and I would guess that this information could be valuable for the government to go after them.
Yeah, so that's one of my primary fundamental funnels is whenever I find information like the drop server, for instance, those kind of things that I talked about in my talk, I definitely pass that over to government entities, not just the U.S. government, but also other entities. So, for instance, if there was an entity being targeted within Sweden, then I would reach out to the Swedish government, either through the U.S. government or via communication channels that I have directly with those entities. So absolutely. And I do that because for obvious reasons, it's, can definitely cause an impact if not, if not paid attention to.
Yeah. I think you got a very good question from the audience down there about should you take these sites down or should you and then I guess that's the big moral dilemma here.
It is.
Because if you know where they are, they're easily monitored, but on the other hand, they can go on doing their business and cause a lot of harm and possibly attract young kids any country, really.
The way I look at it is the intelligence person in me wants to monitor everything all the time as much as possible, specific to those environments. The human element of that is that they could be actively recruiting an individual or cultivating an individual that may possibly not have otherwise gone that route. Yeah. So it's a double-edged sword. And I think that's why it really is a case-by-case basis, meaning are they truly making a kinetic plan of action, meaning are they truly planning on going to attack an airport? If yes, then I think obviously you need to take that down and monitor it if possible after taking it down. But you don't want to stop recruitment at that point because you're talking kinetic activity. If you're talking cyber attacks, denial of services, etc., what's the harm realistically at that point of monitoring that and possibly drawing out larger infrastructure behind that attack? So I think it's a one-off basis, unfortunately, that really needs to be looked at, unfortunately. I wish there was a more blanket answer of saying, let's just monitor it all and just leave it and
everything
hope it
isn't
works.
Black and white.
Yeah, unfortunately.
You mentioned correlation with kinetic activity, and that you have actually seen these connections.
Absolutely.
In what way? When you talked about the drop server, the sort of image server, it was more or less, I would say that's marketing as well, mainly, right?
In a way.
Pictures from the battlefield that could be used in marketing.
Absolutely. And some of that I did, actually, that's a great point, that some of that I did witness actual individuals taking not the actual battle footage itself, but I was seeing other photos that were being leveraged. I would see it on the drop server, and then a month later I would see it show up in maybe that French publication or one of the other publications as well. So in some cases, they were truly using some of those images for some of their propagation materials and propaganda materials as well. So definitely.
But have you seen also like planning activities that has actually been carried out in the real world?
So I unfortunately can't mention too much about that piece, but I can say yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So that means that it is more than just a marketing channel. If they are actually involved,
it is. The only caveat to that is it's been a very small amount of times, meaning
perhaps on an individual basis rather than on an organizational.
Precisely, it hasn't been UCC as a whole saying let's organize this kinetic activity. One of the individuals from the attack organization, etc., and that could have also been lone wolf type of scenarios as well. Maybe the individual was doing that.
Perhaps the UCC isn't used as it isn't part of the sort of the operational part of ISIS, but some of the people might be shared.
Precisely. Yeah, precisely. Okay. That's a great way of describing it. Yeah.
That makes sense.
I have a sort of a philosophical question, and it's regarding speaking in forums like these, and also broadcasting this on YouTube. There is a clear risk that the adversary is going to pick up on this and say, okay, we need to up our OPSEC.
Yeah, absolutely.
And get better at this.
Yeah. That's ultimately a conflict that I've had. Is saying how much do I want to go public with, and that's a fine balance, meaning. I felt comfortable saying at the end of the talk whenever I said, domain proxy registration, because I'm starting to see that migration already happen. So I'm not too concerned that they're going to change because they're already going that way. Yeah. There are other things that I don't necessarily want to mention because I don't want them to know how we're gathering intel.
That's exactly the point.
Yeah, and that's ultimately... whenever I'm studying nation-state actors or cyber criminals, it's the same thing. I have to strike that balance of how much do I want to give away on the intelligence gathering to have them improve their capabilities. Yeah. So that's a conflict that I have oftentimes with all the research that I do because I constantly ask myself, am I going to make them better by publishing what I'm publishing?
Yeah. Yeah.
Then again, as long as they are more or less mainly a marketing branch, then you're actually actively pushing against that marketing when you're saying that no, they aren't dangerous.
Exactly. No, that's a great. I've never looked at it that way. That I'm almost the anti-marketing side.
Propaganda and anti-propaganda.
Yeah, that's true. I like that.
They really suck in their noob hackers.
That's ultimately what it comes down to.
So it will be on the kill list.
I can say if you are, there's not going to be much that's going to happen.
really loved the part when you said that they've been trying to use PGP, but they didn't get it to work because it's hard, and the audience laughed.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
the same way goes for the security.
For the security community, right?
We are pretty good at security, but using PGP is hard.
Yeah, it's not the easiest thing to configure.
Yeah.
And to get people on board with private public keys, and especially those that kind of individual where you can't publish it out to the MIT PGP servers.
No.
I mean, you can't, so how do you distribute your public keys, etc.? So they do hit some of that, some of those same snags that, the three of us hit.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you for delivering an interesting talk.
Thank you.
And
Thanks for having
taking the time to talk to us during this interview.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So, do you have any final questions, Matthias?
No.
No?
No?
Great.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Good
I
talking
appreciate
to you.
it. Yeah, likewise.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Bye then, and don't forget to come to SecT, watch the live stream, and listen to Security Podcast.
Subscribe to our podcast. Yeah. Säkerhetspodcasten.
Bye.
Bye.